Yeah.
Welcome. We're here. It is February 17th, back for another episode of Adventures in Business Live. Mandy, how are we doing?
Amani, we're doing great. And I do have some stuff I want to talk about, but better question. Something arrived on my doorstep this morning.
Okay,
And
something
I
arrived.
unpacked this, but I did not unpack my suitcase yet. So
I appreciate the love.
look at what
that.
arrived on my
Yeah,
doorstep,
yeah,
Amani, just this
yeah.
morning, just moments ago.
It's beautiful. It's
Yeah.
beautiful. Yes,
So for
yes.
listeners and not watchers, I'm holding up Amani's brand new book, The Quiet Storm.
Mhm.
So this is actual book launch week. Like, is it
Yeah.
today? Is it tomorrow? Like, what's the
Tomorrow,
program here?
the 18th. Tomorrow's the official day, but people have been getting
Okay.
their books earlier, like you, so that's good. So it's on. Here we go.
You look nervous. It should be so exciting.
I always tell people, when you're doing the emojis, you have the emoji with the guy with his head exploding or whatever, that emoji. That's how I feel. Because we're here, still doing a lot of work, but I'm excited, I'm relieved, nervous, tired, all of the emotions. But it's great. It's
Well,
great.
you've been on the news all week. You're all the Las Vegas news.
Yeah.
So you're hitting your local town spots. What are you learning from your morning spots that you've been on?
So this is the first time I've ever done any like local news kind of spots for any like TV shows or anything. And what I learned is that you really have to come in and make sure you make your point quickly. Get your points in, what you want to communicate very quickly. Expect them to ask you questions that might be a little bit different. The Fox one threw me off a little bit, but we actually went a minute and a half longer because he was so into it.
Yeah.
So that's what I learned. But the books resonate with everyone because they're like, oh, I could talk about this with you for days. Even the CBS guy, he was late getting to do his next bumper. Like, coming up next is weather with this. He had to run over. He said, don't leave. He had to run over, do his little, coming up next, we have weather with Jim. And then after that, we'll highlight this car accident that happened on the 15. And
Oh,
then he
yikes.
raced back over to keep talking to us. So it was funny.
Amani, you're disrupting the whole show. I love it. Great.
Yes,
That's
I am.
great.
Yes, I am. So appreciate the support. You'll see me going live all week on like Instagram and sharing different interviews and stuff. And yes, here we go.
Well, I know we talked about it in the interview last week, but it is a great book. And if you haven't bought it, buy it. It's fun. I don't even like R&B music. And I learned so much about the music that I like because it
Yes,
all stems with R&B
yes,
groups. So
yes,
thank you
yes.
for writing it. Thank you for doing the research. I know 4.5 years is a long
It's a long, yeah,
time to put together.
yes.
So
But you're welcome. Thank you for reading it. I think this is a good segue because you mentioned disruptor. So we have a disruptor with us here today. Why don't you introduce our guest to us and we'll kind of get our interview going.
we have a disruptor. We have a wonderful disruptor in the best of ways. We have somebody that has been in the travel and hospitality business through all sides, through meeting planning, through educating, through third party, through agency, through NPI, through incentive travel. And she's now the CEO of Society for Incentive Travel. I never can, I used to say executives, but I always mess up the last
Excellence.
one.
Excellent.
Excellence.
You got it. You got
We
it.
have Annette Gregg with us.
Yes. Round of applause.
Hi.
We're gonna give you a round of applause here. Hold on, let's play it.
Woo.
Thank you for being here, Annette.
Well,
It's
thanks for having me back. We had a fun chatter a few years ago when we were together in Palm Springs, and so I'm honored to be back on your show. I'm so glad you all still doing it, and congratulations on your book, Money.
Thank you very much. We're excited to have you. There's so many ways we could start, but I think I've asked you this before when we spoke at MPIWC. I think we're in Cancun, but and then it continues, and I really admire this from you. But you just do a tremendous job of like bridging the gaps between like the PCMAs, the MPIs, the sites, and like you bring us all together, and you're always talking about the different associations, and it's not really like competitive to you. So I really want to just kind of ask you again, how did you develop that mindset, and what benefits have you seen for yourself personally and for the industry?
Oh, I love that. That's a great question. Yeah, because when I first started this job, so I've been in this role for like 2 years and a handful of months. And everybody thought because I came from MPI, that there'd be this weird tension of site versus MPI. But I don't think that serves our industry to think about our industry as a pile of people that belong to one association or the other. I just think we have to think of ourselves holistically, and we have to think of ourselves a little more, we're more complex than that, aren't we? Than just a member of site or a member of MPI or whatever. If you think of an event professional, she could be planning meetings and events for incentives. She could do a trade show next week. She could do a business meeting the following week. So why are we so intent on boxing people in? It just doesn't make sense. If you think of associations, what's the real role here? What are we doing? What are associations doing? We've been around 52 years. MPI is about the same. I don't know about PCMA and all the other alphabet soup. And they always ask, which one's better than the other? Which one should I belong to? And I just say, yes. The answer is yes. Just find the community that resonates with you and join something, because that's where I think the real beauty is that associations are here just to give structure to a community that is massive, right? The business events world is massive. And so associations are just a way to kind of create a community that you can relate to and that can give you concrete interaction on a monthly basis. And sometimes that's not even an association. There's some really great, we'll just call them groups, nonprofit. They're not even membership-based groups out there that are just, communities online, like Club Ichi and some other ones. So I think that it's a dangerous and a slippery slope to go, oh gosh, let's talk about market share and let's win some of their members over to site. Or I just think it's like that's not a job I'm interested in, frankly. I don't want to. Let's just, how do I get a bigger slice of the pie? I just want to grow the pie. And then there'll be plenty for everybody. And I don't even talk to people immediately about joining site. I just talked about people about what are they looking for. And hey, why don't you come sample the product? Go to a chapter meeting. My chapter is Site SoCal. Go to a chapter meeting, check it out. If it's not your jam, that's okay. I feel like the membership discussion is like asking someone to marry you right away. It's like, hey, let's just date a little bit. We don't even know if we're simpatico here, So if we're showing enough value and they found their community, then they'll join. But that doesn't have to be the very first thing we talk about,
Agree. Yeah. So we appreciate the abundance mindset. So thank you for that. I do want to ask, and I'm going to use this clip in my classes, but what's your message to young professional students who are just about to graduate? Maybe they're a little fearful of the industry because they know maybe it's some long hours, or maybe the pay is not in line with the fancy accounting jobs. But what's your message to the young professionals who are considering joining our industry?
Another awesome question. I think this is probably the most important work we can do right now as meeting and event professionals is winning that next generation, especially just as far as a numbers game. We're going to have so many people continuing to retire out as the boomers retire out of the space. And so many stats out there, but by 2030, PricewaterhouseCoopers says that more than half of the workers in the workplace will be under 40 years old. So how do we get those people to think about meetings and events when, yeah, we had some bad press, we get dinged for a lot of things that actually aren't true.
Agreed.
What other profession doesn't have stress? There are a lot of professions that have stress. We don't have an undue or unmanageable amount of stress. We can find ways to cope and manage that. You can get paid really well in this industry. I don't know where we got a bad rap about that somewhere down the line. You're not going to be a financial advisor and whatever, but you make a great living. I mean, that's why a lot of us have stuck it out. And third, it's not menial tasks. I mean, I think we've all started out in our careers, and I stuffed my share of name badges back in the day and checked and rooming lists. But my gosh, what amazing experiences we've all had. So I think the charge for all of us, first and foremost, replace yourself. If you haven't won a young adult heart and mind over to this industry, then I would just question, do you have a compelling case? Like maybe your origin story, maybe you don't want to be in the industry anymore, but replace yourself and then find a way. The second challenge, I think, for everybody is find a way to articulate it in a way that makes sense. We tend to really struggle with the elevator pitch in our industry. And I don't know why that is. Maybe it's so diverse that we can't figure it out. But I taught for many years, Imani, like you at San Diego State, and I'd had to start with like, hey, let's think about Coachella or think about Comic-Con. I had to give them a place where they can get their head around. And I go, that is, events, guys. There's a professional team behind Comic-Con that gets paid for a living to do that. And it's a trade event, and even though Coachella is a little more of a public event, it's still, we all know this, there's so much crossover. So once I could get their head around like, oh, I want to do that. Well, that's what we do for a living, and kind of just talk about the whole variety of things you can do in the industry. So I think it's an exciting opportunity for us to capture that generation.
Yes. When you mention Coachella, their ears perk up. They're like, yes, I'm in.
Yeah.
So done.
And then you go deeper and you go, okay, that tequila brand that did the huge activation, that's experiential marketing. How fun is that? Another angle of our business. Like once you kind of get down a rabbit hole with them, then like, oh, I get it. It's not just, no offense, it's not just wedding planning, or it's not just sitting behind a front desk at a hotel, right? Like they don't know what they don't know.
Yes. Well said. Mandy, over to you.
Yeah, you got to keep it sexy. I like that. You gotta keep it sexy with the stuff that people like. I want to hang here for a second because I've watched you model this leadership style for so many years, and I admire it, and I try and do it myself, and I think, what would Annette do in this situation? But I want to share a story, and then I want to ask a follow-up question. So I think it was like 12, 13, 14 years ago, you were at LPL. So I don't know if that jives with the number that you were at. I had just started with HPN. And I had asked you, hey, can we hop on the phone? Can you just share what LPL does? And like you had a huge role, a huge team, and you took the time with me on the phone to tell me what they do and how they make decisions and what's important to them. And to me, it was like, you never knew if I would help or not. You never knew if I would follow through or go with the bidding process or whatever that was. But you, as somebody in the industry, rose up to somebody that asked the question. And I'm sure a bazillion people ask you that question. And you took the time. And I remember I was in a hotel lobby at the Intercontinental in San Francisco, and there's a site inspection going on. And I excused myself to take the call. And I remember just taking crazy notes on like an envelope or something. And you took the time. And I've seen you do this over and over and over again. And I want to ask you in terms of like modeling that leadership. To me, I think there's a form of leadership you do so effortlessly, like where I think some leaders feel like, listen to me, I'll tell you everything you need to know. But I've never felt that with you. And I think you model this style of leadership where it's like you give time, but you also kind of secretly give advice. So I just want to like ask you, first of all, I wanted to thank you for your impact on me, but I also wanted to ask you, like, is this conscious? Is this leadership model you do conscious? Are you wired this way? Have you had to work at it? Like, where does this come from?
Well, what a wonderful story. Thank you for that. It makes me emotional. I'm very happy to hear that that's an impression I left on you. I think there's a couple things that come to mind for me. And one of them is just, because I've had jobs, we'll just call it on both sides of the aisle. I've been on the supplier side, I've been in sales, I've cold called, like, we've all have to do on that side. And then I've also been a buyer. I have been able to relate to both sides, to many different roles in the industry. I've been in operations and sales, I've been in management, and I've been entry level. And I think I've been grateful to have a little empathy. And at the end of the day, Mandy, you're just trying to do a job back then, and I could say, hey, geez, I don't have time for this. And, you and I had a relationship, a little bit. But I just hope that I never lose that empathy, because I don't want to be, I don't want to have a reputation that I know it all, or that I don't have time for people. I mean, there is a matter of physically of time sometimes.
Yeah, there's
Just
always
don't
so
have
much.
to. Yeah, you don't have time to get back to everybody that wants your business. And so sometimes, I can't take as much time as I did with you, but I think in the end, how you show up really matters. There's plenty of initials behind everybody's name these days, the longer you're around. And none of that means anything to me if I'm not regarded as someone with ethics, and someone that treats people well, and someone that's a good human. So that's what I'm trying to do. I think the older I get, is like just asking for more humility, because I think it also gets to a place where you feel like you know it all. I'm leading an organization, and I can have an edge where I know it all. And I have to remind myself, hey, listen to people, listen to staff, slow down, listen to your board members. And that's hard, because you have a certain level of confidence the older you get in the role you're in. But being humble doesn't mean being insecure. I'm not an insecure person, but I always want to remain humble, because I got to remain teachable. I don't know it all. I don't. And I got to find a balance between confidence and continuous learning.
That's beautiful. And I know Yamani had asked you about students, right? But I want to ask you, because I see leadership as just your superpower. So what do you say to people that have been in the industry maybe 5, 10 years, and they're teetering on becoming a leader, but they're like, I don't want that responsibility, or maybe they're new to a leadership role and they're just feeling like not enough. Like, what advice do you have for leaders up and coming?
I like this conversation too, because I feel like, as you continue in your career journey, there's pressure to continue to move up to certain things. And there's a time where you move from being a good sole contributor, you're the best at your trade. So this is what happens a lot, say, to top salespeople. And then the next step is a director of sales. And it's not a great fit. They might have been a killer sole contributor, just really dynamic and a driver. And then when it gets to leading a team, completely different skill sets. But we don't necessarily equip that person to progress along that. We just say, hey, it's the next step. So go ahead and kill it at that level too. And so then you get up this whole crisis of confidence where it's like, gosh, I wasn't meant to be a manager. So I guess the first step I would say is kind of make sure you're really comfortable with your why you want to move into leadership and begin with, because you're not in control of just you anymore, moving from a good sole contributor to the next step. And you have people that are, it's a heavy responsibility to lead people. We should take it very seriously. And we are the number one reason people stay or leave a job, according to Gallup, is their direct supervisor. So we should really take that to heart, right? Like, hey, I don't want to just take the paycheck and the title. Do I care enough about rising these people up and helping them succeed? Because that's what the other thing is about. It's really about them afterwards. You've really raised to a level of leadership, but your best leadership ability is to unlock their potential. It's about them succeeding, because you're not even doing it anymore. You're not even selling anymore, right? It's about your team doing it. So if you're not comfortable with that, really that kind of servant heart mentality, mentor heart, that you're trying to help others succeed, you're okay with the gray, because people are messy. Managing people are messy. And we have to get to know people on a personal level if they're really going to feel that we care about them as a leader. And that takes time, and that takes personal questions, and not just, checking the box off and everything. And third, there's also a complexity to managing up, and that can sometimes not be fun. The higher up you move up the food chain, now you've got more reports to do. You're less in the field. Maybe the field is what you loved. Maybe actually event management is really the thing that brought you all the joy. Now you're a director of event ops. but you're never in the field anymore. So that's where I get back to like, just ask yourself some tough questions. I've definitely taken some jobs for the pay or for the title that were not a good fit. And I kind of knew it in the beginning, but I jumped and then learned the hard way.
Hmm.
And for those two, Amani, I'm sorry. I know I'm bogarting here. Just one more follow-up. This is what, Annette, this is what we do.
We can go 2 hours. Let's do
We're
it.
fist fighting for you. No, one more follow-up to that. There might be some people too, they ask themselves the hard questions and the answer might be, you know what? I don't want to be responsible for people. I just want to be awesome at what
Yeah,
I do. And that's totally okay too. So how
totally.
can that personality type
Yeah.
still express leadership in some way, even if they don't decide to lead a team? Like, are there other ways
Yeah.
they can help their industry or show their
I love it.
leadership?
Yeah, absolutely. And I have a lot of friends in this area and this is why, again, going back to associations and getting involved on a volunteer basis, we can all contribute our thought leadership and even our leadership abilities. We're a really good project manager and we can really guide temp staff or, people on the team to do it, but we don't want to get into the actual direct reports where now I'm doing evaluations and quarterly things and stuff. So you can still be in leadership and not be directly leading people. And I think it's through volunteer leadership. I think you can still raise your hand at your job for kind of team responsibilities or, try it. Get your toe wet by saying, hey, let me be a team leader on this project. See if I like that responsibility. And then you can always fall back to your regular job if that wasn't for you. So I think absolutely keep finding ways to scratch that itch. If direct kind of management leader is not in your direct line of sight, keep seeing if there's other ways to experiment with it.
I like that. Temporary tasks. I like that a lot.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah. So give a shout out to Angela Minardi, who's in the chat. She
Hi, Angela.
agrees that empathy is your strong suit. You make everyone feel seen and heard. And then
Oh, thanks,
also
Ian.
Erin Bianchi. Hope I said your last name right.
Hi, Aaron.
She said she remembers when you brought in empathy exercises when you were at PRA, and those principles have stuck with her, and she shares with her team. So,
Thanks,
yeah.
guys.
And
Thank
then
you.
special shout out to Amanda, who's joining us on Facebook. So we got some people here for you.
Oh, that's great.
I have a
Thanks.
two-part question. It's about leadership. When you look back and you've been with several large organizations, what have been some of the most valuable leadership lessons you've learned?
Mm.
And then I'll follow up with the next one.
Boy, that is good. Because it's interesting. I think that's one of the questions. So I talk to a lot of people about careers, and I ask them questions a lot and say, "Hey, do you like big organizations? Do you like little organizations? Do you like a lot of structure and to know the plan, or do you like to kind of be an entrepreneur and be in an environment that's okay in the gray?" And I think those are kind of critical things to know. And maybe you don't know yet, so you need to try. Say your 20s and 30s, you're trying it. But that's kind of one thing I learned is I'm probably more comfortable in, I'd say, mid-sized to smaller organizations where I have a little bit more empowerment versus so I was a leader in probably the biggest companies like the City of LA and LPL Financial, both billion-dollar and big companies, and had some leadership roles, but you're kind of regimented to a certain thing because there's so many resources there, so many great leaders. So for me, I'm a very out of box thinker. I'm a very blue ocean, hey, let's wander down this trail. Let's try it. Let's try some things. And so I need to be in environments that move quickly and that have a lot of ability or opportunities for growth, not just kind of stick in this role and don't look left or right. So that's just some of the things I learned about myself. The settings themselves were fine, but it's the type of person I am in those settings and what I was looking for. But it helped me to kind of calibrate myself along the journey.
Very good. Very good. Shout out Deborah McKay. You spoke of LPL. She was like, you two work together at LPL. So
Yeah.
very great timing, Deborah. Well done.
Yeah,
and Angela Aguilar says hello too.
Oh.
Now, when you look at 2025, in your opinion, what are some of the most important leadership skills that we should be acquiring and really honing in on for this era that we're in currently?
Oh, good. You guys are pros. You asked some really great questions. So I have recently heard a word that I love this word. So equanimity. And it's about maintaining calm in the midst of chaos. And, we're in a politically divisive time. And I'm not going to even go into what side you're on because that doesn't matter. But all of us can admit that there's a lot going on right now.
Yeah.
So how do we, and especially me as a leader, but all of us, how do we remain calm in the midst of all of that? And can we find some degree of focusing on what we can control versus what we can't? Because that is the only way we're going to be able to sleep just sometimes in some of these things. So I'll give you an example. Today I was having a great talk with one of my friends and just about DEIB. And I said, hey, no matter what's happening about DEI programs at corporations, it doesn't let us off the hook as humans, right? So I don't care if I work for a company, which, Site didn't do this, Site's moving forward with their community or what have you, but say you work for a company where they disbanded that, their DEI program. Now, me as a worker or an employee in that company, I should still be conducting myself in a way that's inclusive, a way that is trying to bring awareness to my own bias, a way that I am creating a diverse team, hiring a diverse team. So some of these things I know they're very startling, but I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing because it's what I believe and it's what I have control over. So I think that in the midst of chaos, any kind of chaos, like we have to focus on what are the things I have control over, because I don't have control over most of what's going on, right? But I do have control over my own actions, who I surround myself with, the kind of input I have coming in, how I ground myself, as a woman of faith, and how I ground myself every day. And, that's what I have control of. And that helps calm the noise for me.
Nice. Thank you. We got Sarah, one of my students here. So Sarah, I'm going to introduce you to Annette. You should meet her. Yes. She says DEI doesn't start with a company. It starts from within. So she agrees. So thank you. Mandy, I'll kind of tag you. You're it.
Well, I got it. I got you. I want to hang here for a minute because you said something several years ago about when it comes to incentive travel or when it comes to any sort of travel for meetings and events. There was a lot of discussion about different people not wanting to go to different states because of policy, right?
Yeah.
And you said something that really resonated with me. And in full disclosure, I've completely copied and I've shared it with other people because I did give you a credit for it, but I think it's important.
Sure.
It's a message that's important of like, instead of like boycotting, instead of let's lean into it. So if let's just say you won't go to a certain state because of the policies, instead of not going there, go there, but serve the community that is there as a project or something. So could you elaborate on that? Because I thought that was a good way of talking about our industry. I think we're so hesitant. So many people want to put their hand up versus opening their arms. And what you said was really powerful.
Yeah, it's a complicated one, right? And to give credit where credit's due, this is Destinations International's viewpoint is, hey, let's not boycott destinations. The people that serve the hospitality industry, the meetings and event industry, they need our conferences, our conventions to continue to come through those cities. And just because they live in that town or that state doesn't mean they agree with its politics. So let's not take money out of their pockets by not holding our conference there. So that being said, your attendees have to feel safe and wanted. I mean, there's definitely decisions we've made in my seat where it's, hey, we're not going to take a meeting there because there's a law in place where one of my people that, could get arrested. So we can't do that. We cannot put them in harm's way, but that's an extreme example. But I do agree. So Mandy, back to your point, the Destinations International point of view is kind of, find a way that you can support the cause that you feel strongly about while you're in the city. And maybe it's just taking up a donation that supports a certain charity for that, or you actually do a hands-on project, or you support a business, that exemplifies that cause, and that's the vendor you hire for your conference. Whatever it is, these are going right back to what I was talking about. What do we have control over? We don't have control over state politics. I guess you could say I have control over, I'm going to take my meeting elsewhere. Yeah, if that works for you and your leadership and your organization, you have to do what you're going to do. And I know some companies have done that and they're trying to make a statement. But I think if you're going forward and you feel like, hey, we still need to have our conference, because I also have, at least Site, we have members in all these cities and states too. So I need to take these meetings and events where our members are. And so that's what I would advocate. Is there a way to do it? You're not approving of everything just because you're holding your meeting there. You're supporting the industry. You're putting together something that supports your members, at least from my point of view, or your employees, I guess, on that side. And there's ways to support the causes.
I love that. And then I want to I want to hone in on incentive travel. So
Yeah.
what is the state of incentive travel, and
Mhm.
what are some things on the horizon we should be paying attention to as we travel?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, incentive travel is doing really well, and I think it's for multiple reasons. I think that reward and recognition is kind of at an all-time high with these internal stakeholders, with corporate. They're the ones who really ultimately hold the purse strings. Employee retention and recruitment is the number one problem keeping everybody up at night with these back to work and back to office initiatives. And there's just employee turnover. Another Gallup poll said 51% of people that responded to the poll will leave their jobs this year. So it's
Wow.
just a massive disruption. I mean, look left, look right. One of them is not going to be your coworker this year. So that's just a lot of disruption when you have that much churn in your employees. And so we're seeing a lot of support for incentive travel to continue to be one of those tangible rewards that employees really do value. So we have a couple surveys that we do, but one of them is of the CMOs or the CSOs or the CROs, the people that hold the purse strings on the corporate side. And they're all saying, 76% said it's critical to our reward and recognition program. We will continue to fund it, continue to grow the budget, increase the budget for that. And I think the second reason we're seeing an increase is that it's extending beyond kind of the traditional reward is for the sales team, or in multi-level marketing, say, your top seller for Herbalife or what have you, Amway. And it's going now to, let's reward other types of people in the organization. Maybe, a peer recognized person gets it, your coworker of the month gets it, somebody in HR. So that we're also seeing an increase in using these incentive travel programs to reward non-sales. Again, back to like, hey, this is a tangible thing. People really, it actually just, it hits, has a bigger impact on the employee than a money thing, than saying, hey, here's just an X $1,000 bonus. We're actually going to take you to this trip so you can experience that with your spouse or your partner. And we know that's experience economy from way back when. Those tangible memories just way longer. They stick in their brains. They have a heart connection, more so than money you're going to spend and forget all about.
And
so it's a good place for us right now.
It is. And I love, you just reminded me of something, and I don't know if people know this, is, you're rattling off all of these stats and surveys and figures. And I have used sites, stats and surveys and figures with customers before when they've asked me about the industry, but it is something that I forget from time to time. So can you just share a little bit about the resources that site has available to people? Because it is valuable when you remember, but even somebody like me who tries to use it all the time, I forget. And now you're reminding me. I'm like writing notes. I've got to
Oh,
send
I'm
some
so
stuff.
glad you brought it up. No,
Yeah,
thanks.
talk about it.
And it is free for everyone. So the biggest survey, and it doesn't just talk about incentive travel. It talks about kind of that motivation, the science of motivation. So there's a lot of good meaty stuff there. But the Incentive Travel Index, it's sponsored by our site foundation. We do it with the Incentive Research Foundation every year. And that's kind of our benchline survey. It comes out every October. So that is in there, and you can slice and dice it by, if you're looking for buyers from Asia, you can see what their preferences are versus buyers from Europe and what have you. So you can slice it all different ways. And then we have some other surveys that we've done just at site that, again, I mentioned the corporate stakeholder one, but we've also talked to corporate meeting planners, and what are called IT and ME survey. That's recent, all last year. So what are the trends they're looking at, and how are the design trends shifting? I think one of the interesting takeaways from that is just the design of these programs. Even though programs are growing, budgets are tight. So inflation is still up there. There's also a demand for these types of resorts that we all want to go to, incentive travel, because business travel is fully back. So everybody wants to go to that nice, 4+ star resort. So all of that's driving prices up. And so what we're seeing is some design trends shifting. And there's also the demographic shift that's causing design trends, because some of these, this is all in the data that you can get for free, but so many of our qualifiers, the participants, are younger. So now we're seeing a shift in more free time in these incentive travel programs. So it's a way for people to save money, also to say, hey, we're going to give you Tuesday afternoon off. Why don't you just go into Tulum and enjoy the community yourself? But it's also what the younger qualifier wants, is like, hey, I don't want every single minute of my incentive program. I want to go out on my own. So those are also some things that are pulled out in the data as just some design shifts, which I think are really interesting. And the shift toward authentic and immersive and locally owned, all that is really exciting for us, and just a way to give a little refresh to some of these legacy incentive programs.
I love that. Thank you for the reminder.
If we could stay with the data, I'm curious in terms of trends that are out there.
Yeah.
What are some trends within both the incentive industry and then overall meetings and events in general that you really are keeping your eye on? Like, I'm going to keep my eye on this one.
Yeah, well, I think I touched on a couple of them, and one, I'll stick on incentive travel first. So incentive travel now, post-pandemic, we're probably in the 4th year of cycling, and right out of the gate, the very first one's back. Our side of the business rebounded pretty quickly, because you can't really do an incentive program online. You could still do a business meeting online for a year or two, but you couldn't do an incentive program. So as soon as people felt safe, they're getting their rewardees back, their top performers back out there. But they were staying close to home. So Mexico's never taken its foot off the gas pedal. It's really, even through COVID, it's just done extremely well. Caribbean, the safe kind of fun and sun that people knew. Those were the first kind of 2 years of cycle of location choices right when we came out. But now what you're seeing, our data is showing that now people are willing to take their programs to those destinations they've never tried before. So for anyone that's in a spot where it's like, gosh, we have this great property, it's hard to get to, or it's a longer flight, or it's one of those bucket list destinations, now's the time that these corporations are looking at investing in those, because they've been through a couple of the cycles of the ones we've been to before. So we're also seeing cruises come way back. I think predictions this year is cruising is going to be at all-time high again. So that's back with a vengeance. And then all-inclusives are very, very on the rise. And that's because if you saw that, Hyatt took over another suite of all-inclusives. So it's kind of this land grab. Hilton has a whole bunch of all-inclusives they're doubling down on. Hyatt just bought another portfolio. But all-inclusives make the planner's life a lot simpler with that food and beverage savings. And with costs rising with everything else, or at least at a high plateau, that is one way for them to stabilize their budget. So we're seeing those very popular right now. And that's probably why cruising too is up there. So general trends face-to-face in general, I think I'll go back to that kind of demographic shift. We've all seen a lot of the same themes in all the articles we see. AI, right? Every other article is about AI. Every other article is about Gen Z. And so, but I think the answer is yes. And that generation already is comfortable with AI. So it's kind of like the whole AI thing about it's coming. What are we going to do with it? I mean, it's kind of here, and meeting planners or meeting our events industry gets slammed because we're slow adopters, and it won't even be a choice really to adopt it or not. I mean, I think for those of us that can lean in a little faster, it's just going to save us more time. I don't think we're going to be obsolete. I don't have the fear-based thoughts that a lot of people have, but some of our tasks that are a little more rudimentary could be taken over by AI, but we'll always have that ability to add that higher level thinking. But then, so really embracing that and making it somehow a tangible, easy way, if you're going to incorporate it into your meeting or incorporate it into your educational sessions, all about easy, quick steps people can take now, because it's an overwhelming topic. Just like sustainability tends to be an overwhelming topic for busy meeting professionals when they're like, oh, it's just another thing I got to think about. And it's like, these things need to be woven in. So it's just part of the equation. It's not like a hotel has the ability to do a sustainability program or not. They're doing it. They're mandated to do it. They're doing it. And it's saving them millions of dollars because they know how to conserve things and what have you. So, I'd say start with, if you're overwhelmed by some of these new trends, start with the ones that are already doing it and just just create a way to slowly make it part of the fabric of how you do everything. But then the second trend, the millennial or the younger generation, Gen Z, I think this is the real opportunity for us to look at how we are designing the agendas. You've read a lot about keeping more open space. This another Gallup poll, or I forget if this was Gallup, but 73% of Gen Z said they feel lonely some or most of the time. So we have a loneliness epidemic with that younger generation because they were raised on gadgets and then they got locked down for how many years and they missed out on their high school and college and now they work remote. So we have to find a way to design interactions that can ease them into this. It's easy for me as an extrovert to walk into a ballroom of strangers, and I've had a lot of time to practice. But every 24-year-old, how do we make it easier on her so she's not scared out of this industry after 1 year? So I think we just have to take a step back and look at how we design for someone that grew up differently than how I grew up, in the industry. And for that goes to the whole big discussion about your brain and how your brain needs a break and what's going to fuel your brain for better retention and all that kind of stuff. But again, I think it's fun. I think it's a fun opportunity to reinvent.
I love it. I love it. So Angela wants to know where we get those stats. So if there's a place where I can link the stats, go ahead.
Yeah, it's just siteglobal.com. And I think it's /research. And that's the landing page for all of our studies.
All right, I'll link that. Thank you for asking, Angela. Now we've come to the point in the show where we flip the script.
Okay.
So we let you ask both myself and Mandy any question you like. So who do you want to ask the question to, and what is the said question?
All right, Monty, I'm starting with you because I have a heart for students too, and I know you're such a wonderful instructor over there in Fullerton, or you might be a professor now, I'm not sure. But so my question for you is, what makes you hopeful as you see these students come through, kind of this next generation of our industry? What makes you hopeful?
I love this question. What makes me hopeful is that we continue to get more students that are interested. They're engaged in the instruction. They ask a lot of questions. They're really active within the clubs on campus, particularly putting on their own events, having guest speakers, getting alumni, and they keep showing up. They ask good questions, and they are really, really interested. But really, I'm so glad you mentioned Coachella, because that's the areas that they're interested in. Is they understand. Oh, I want to go work the Grammys. That's the event I want to work. I want to go work the MTV Movie Awards, or I want to work Coachella. And so they understand that those qualify and count in our industry, and that's a great sign, I feel.
Yeah. Oh, I'm so glad. And I think you're right. I mean, some of our budgets on the corporate side are even bigger than ones I've ever worked on the, the public event side. So there's a lot of potential there. But no, good. I'm hopeful too. I think it's a generation that gets dinged for the wrong reasons, like I said before, because they're very at least the folks that I talk to, they're super personable and eager and they want to work hard and they just work a different way.
Yes.
So
exactly. Yes.
Good. I'm glad to hear that. All right, Mandy. So for you, I know you are someone who is very goal oriented. So when you think about 2025, what's a personal goal that you've set for yourself this year?
Oh, well, I'm going to be 50 in August.
Okay.
So actually last August, I set a goal for this August. I'm calling it the Best by 50. So BB50.
Love it.
And I I created, I like a system. We talked about that at the beginning. I created these little buckets. So 6 buckets of little things, just micro actions I've been taking once a month that go towards this. So the buckets are, so I want to feel best by 50 in nutrition, physical, spiritual, emotional, business, and finance.
Awesome.
So every month at the beginning of the month, I have it's a mini goal. Like an example of a mini goal is a breathing break every 90 minutes, a 5-minute breathing break, right? Or not eating past 7 o'clock. Like every month since August, I've done these little things, and I have a little spreadsheet, and Amani and I talk about it sometimes too, but that, I mean, when people are like, what's going on in your world? I'm like, I'm just living BB50 right now. I'm just chipping away. This is what it's really important to me, and I feel really good, and I am not as anxious as I normally am, and I am breathing better and sleeping better. So that's like my personal goal. I'm just like literal micro goals, just chipping away at until August, and hopefully I keep at it. Yeah.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
It's small things, big impact in the end. That's awesome.
Small things, big impact. Yeah. Well, while we're here, I want to ask you about just wellness and balance is such a silly word, but just, our industry, it can consume us if we let it, right? So like being a mom, being a wife, being a great friend, a family member, like how do you manage your world in a way that keeps you well and healthy and balanced? And we're not all well and healthy, balanced 100% of the time, right? But like, what are some of the tactics you do for yourself?
Yeah, it is always a work in progress, right? I mean, we're not really going to master, but I don't feel like a very stressed person. So I kind of feel like if you have a wheel in your life, I think for me, I try to pay attention to a lot of different pie pieces. So one is definitely spiritual. One is physical. One is emotional, kind of being in community, make sure I'm not, head down and isolating myself, which is easy to do. And kind of last one's probably professional. So I think I try to pay attention to every one of those every day, and I'll know if I'm out of whack, if one of those is taken over too much. But if I can touch and keep them somewhat, I won't say balanced, because you're right, that's an anomaly, but if I can give attention to each of those areas every day, and even sometimes it's back to a system, like I'll schedule in prayer and meditation time, I'll schedule in a workout every day, but I got to do that. That's just my system. But if I can make sure, I'm doing that, then it's worked out pretty well.
I like looking at it like a wheel. I hadn't thought about it that way before. Or if you're doing one more than the other, then you're out of whack. Like, because I don't think we pay attention.
The wheel gets wobbly.
Yeah. Or we don't pay attention to ourselves enough in that way, right? We sometimes we think about what we're not doing, but we're not thinking about what we're doing too much of. So I like that visual that you just gave. That's really helpful.
And sometimes that's going to be inevitable. Like if you're in a busy time at work, that's going to be a bigger quadrant, turn into more of a third than a fourth, but just making sure that doesn't stay there, and you can get back when you can get back and take retreats, and maybe that side or a friend's weekend or a family getaway is going to be more of a pie piece. So, but I think it's important to just have it on the radar all the time.
Yeah. Love that.
Yeah. So we're going to head back up north to Berkeley. We're going to go to Berkeley.
Yes.
Berkeley, Northern California, the Cal Bears, Berkeley Cal Bears.
Yes.
And we run into Annette. We could run to Annette right as she's graduating from college. And you're going to share some advice based on everything you've learned about life so far with your younger self. What advice would you give your younger self?
Yeah, that is so tricky, isn't it? I just say spend less energy around managing other people's expectations. So I think one thing I've dealt with most of my life, and it's not just a work thing, but personal thing, is just really wanting to be liked. It's important to me, and that's really an exhausting no-win situation, because at the end of the day, you're just gonna have people who just don't like you, and that's all right. So I think I just have to be accountable to higher callings than that, right? To things that matter more. Am I do I like myself? Am I doing what I'm called to do? Again, as a mom and a wife and a person of faith. I was talking to my friend today, and everyone talks about this, but your gravestone is not going to have anything on there about work or job title, or if she was like, everybody liked her. It's just going to be what you did between the dash between the years. So I just think I'd spend less energy trying to manage my likability factor, because that's just as it can be pretty tiring. You just gotta start with liking yourself, and then the rest kind of falls into place, I think.
Well said. Well said. Over to Mandy to close us out.
Yeah, well, I just like that, like you got to spend time to like yourself.
So,
I'm gonna have
yeah.
to rewatch this and take notes. This is so
Yes.
good.
Yes.
So how could we support you, lift you up, support Psych
Mm,
Global? Like
thank
what
you.
can we do to help continue giving back in the way you've been giving back?
Well, thanks for asking that. The site recently created some college level curriculum. Amani, I'm going to send it to you with IRF, and it's a 60-minute or a 90-minute module on incentives and incentive travel. So if you get asked to be a guest speaker at a university, and hey, come in and tell them about what you do, and incentive travel is what you do, then this is free. It's on our learning management system on site. So kind of take that and spread the good word. I think always going to one of our events is wonderful. Seeing if sites for you is great. We have chapters in all over the world, so 27 chapters, but we have our own events coming from the global site at siteglobal.com. You can see where our events are, but we'd love to see one of those. And so anything like that would be great. It'd be great to see you, and we want to hear, even if you're not a member, we're here to support you in any way. So spreading the word about that would be great.
I love that. And so for people that are watching, on the ticker, you see siteglobal.com. But if you're listening to the podcast, it's site global.com. And that will be in the show notes as well. So with that, if you're okay, I'm going to give the site SoCal, because that's my chapter. I'm going to give a little
Yeah,
plug for an event they have coming up. So March
sure.
11th at the Sheraton San Diego, which is my story of origin hotel from 25 years ago. They have Jennifer Cassetta speaking, who
Nice.
Awesome.
the author of The Art of
Mhm.
Badassery, a
Yeah.
friend of us. She's been on the show, and
Yeah.
she's going to be at that event, which is, I'm so excited that the
Yeah.
chapter has them. So March 11th, I know that's going to be a really awesome event coming up. That's a Site SoCal event. So if you're in Southern California
Yeah.
and you want to support the chapter, you want to meet other, society, incentive excellence friends, go on March 11th to the Sheraton San Diego.
Wow, that's going to be awesome. She's great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we
She's
love her.
awesome. Well, Annette, we just thank you for coming back and joining us again
You're
a second
welcome.
time.
You're
Thank you
welcome.
for sharing your mindset, also the trends, just all the information. Just like Mandy said, we need to kind of review this, what you share with us, because you shared a lot of great nuggets. And really just continue to be the leader you are with the same mindset that you have. I admire that so much with you, and I wanted to reiterate that. So just continue
Thanks,
to follow
Amani.
that path, and thank you for being a beacon of light for all of us.
Oh, thank you guys so much. Look forward to giving you a hug in person soon. Thanks for having
Very
me.
soon. We
Yeah.
will
Thank
put
you
you.
for being here, Annette.
Yeah,
So good to see you.
we'll give you a round of applause. Put you back in the green room. So hold tight. So
All
round of
righty.
applause. Thank you very much here. Yes.
Oh, claps, 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 claps.
All right, Mandy. Another great show. Thanks to Annette. What and who do we have to look forward to next week?
Well, next week we have one of your friends, Monty, a stranger to me,
Oh,
but hopefully a friend after we talk to
it will be
him.
a friend. Yes.
We have Dr. Will Moreland
Okay, Dr.
on
Will
the
will be joining us.
show, and I don't know. You tell us about him. What should we expect next week?
Dr. Will is an incredibly successful business person all over the world, a phenomenal keynote speaker, phenomenal trainer. So we're going to have our learning hats on, and he's going to school us, and he's got a great story. So I'm excited. I think this will be the first time I've interviewed him ever. Like been with him in different sessions. So we got some good stuff. You'll like him. You're going to vibe very well with him. He loves Denny's restaurants, by the way. He loves Denny's.
Moon's
So
over
keep that
my
in mind.
hammy.
Yes, keep that in mind. So
Hey, good to know.
with that, thank you all very much for watching live. Thank you for everyone in the chat. Good to see you, Sarah, Angela, all of our people. If you're watching this on replay, make sure to rate, review, and subscribe on the platform that you're watching on or listening on. We appreciate the support. And with that, we will see everyone next week, 4 p.m. on the East, 1 p.m. on the West. And Mandy, happy book launch week for me.
Happy book launch week, Amani.
Yes,
See you
yes.
soon. Bye,
Thank you, everyone.
everybody.